Alright, so attribution, which basically means what's causing things, right? So it would be beneficial to know which marketing touch points, such as advertisements and stuff, actually cause specific customer behavior. Now, attribution is a strategy of determining the value of marketing communications, or activities it should be really, and allocating its identified touch points along customer journeys. Right, which comes from a journal article. It's techie, it's very researchy, a bit nerdy, but it's accurate, right? And it's very difficult to calculate this with a lot of accuracy. It requires data from offline activities and integrating data from multiple touch points. So now I've said how hard it is and how valuable it is. Let's try and have a look at how it works. So imagine that a customer named John sees a display ad for a new product on a website, and he clicks on the ad and visits the company's website. The next day, John receives an email with more information about the product, and later that day sees another ad for the product on social media. So there's quite a few touch points there. John finally decides to make a purchase and buys the product. In this scenario, the marketing team can use attribution to determine which touch points had the most impact on John's decision to actually buy. For example, they might use multiple touch point or multi-touch point attribution model that gives partial credit to both the display ad and the email, and then assigns most credit to the final touch point, the purchase, which happens a lot. We've got a bias towards the final touch point as being having the most attribution or causing the purchase the most, right? Because that's what's most relevant to us at that particular time, but it's not always true. So based on this analysis, the marketing team might conclude that both the display ad and the email were important to John's decision-making process, but the final ad on social media was the deciding factor. This information can then be used to optimize the marketing strategy and allocate budgets more effectively. For example, the marketing team might increase their investment on display ads and email marketing and also focus on improving their social media ads. Now, this is an example that was generated by ChatGPT, which I asked to give me an example of attribution. So instead of me having to write out a nice fancy story, I got ChatGPT to do that. All right, so let's have a look now how this might look on a visual way. So first of all, the customer is exposed to a display ad, which brings awareness. Then they do a search. And now, for those of you who don't consumer behaviour, most of you would have done that. They're going through the consumer decision-making process. They visit a store, and on that store, they got exposed to direct marketing, mail. And then they got retargeting web. So we can do that in digital marketing now. We can work out who's come to our website, what they looked at, and then we can send ads specifically targeted to them, so remarketing efforts. Well, it's called retargeting here, but I call it remarketing. And then it could be a call center, which rings them up and go, hello, how's it going? We're just, ringing up to let you know we've got a sale on or whatever. Or it could be retargeting email, so there's two different ways to go here. And then the final goal, which could be the conversion, such as purchasing it. So the point is, the customer has been exposed throughout the journey. Let's call it a journey. And the reason why we call it journey is just to sort of illustrate what happens, the journey, the road that they've taken to actually purchasing the product. Now I want to ask you then, which one of these had the most impact on them actually purchasing the product? And to be honest, it's really difficult to know, but attribution is trying to work out. So I've got another example here. Attribution example. So an example of attribution in digital marketing is using multi-touch attribution to understand the role of different touch points in the customer journey. For example, a customer might click on a Google search ad, visit the company website, receive an email follow-up, and finally make the purchase. A multi-touch attribution model might attribute certain percentage to the sale of each touch point on its contribution to the final conversion. So I'm going to go back now and go, all right, we don't know which of these are causing the final goal. So we're going to go, how many goals have we got? 8. So we're going to allow, we're going to divide 100% by 8 and then go that much it is. So let's go, just say 100 divided by 8. I can't do that in my head. So there's 12.5% for each point. So that's 12.5 there, 12.5 there, 12.5 there, 12.5 there. So across the thing, each point caused 12.5% probability of actually reaching the goal. All right. In the first instance, the first touch point might be assigned 40%. So that's if it's even. Right. If we're going to do try break it up, we might go 40%. So just say if they see a search ad, we go, well, that caused 40% of the customer to actually purchase it. Then the website visit, that caused 30%, so increased it from 40, 50, 60, 70, we're now at 70%. Then they followed up by an email which added another 20%, which are at 90%. And then the final purchase, the checking out process, was a 10%, 100%. Yeah? So this information then can be used to optimize the marketing strategy, focusing on the touch points that are most effective in driving conversions. This is just one example, or another example that I've given you, about how attribution can be used in digital marketing. There are many different attribution models and methods, and the best approach will depend on the specific needs and goals of business. Now, this is advanced digital marketing attribution. I don't expect you to be experts on it, but I want you to know how cool it is, how important it is, and if you know this, how good you can get your marketing. But just understand how difficult it is to do. So I've got here some more illustrations about different attribution methods. So we've got last click attribution assigns the credit to the last touch point in the decision making process. So here you go, and basically nearly everything, so not all of it, so we've got, just say this infographic's not the best, but basically the last click has the most influence on the decision making process. Now, this method is common because it's easy, and as human beings we tend to default to this bias, and you go, oh yeah, the reason why you did it is because of the last thing that you're engaged with. Not necessarily, right? So it's very common, it's the most common, but it's not very accurate. Other methods are more complex and assign attribution across multiple touch points. This includes first click, so you go, well, the first thing that you did, so when you search for our product, that was the most that caused you to buy the product the most. Then we got linear, and go, we have no idea how to explain that one. Divide it evenly across. Time decay, where you go, the most, so over time, so it's hard to explain. So just say if it was linear and we had 12.5% assigned for it, but the longer it takes, the more that 12.5%. So that 12.5 then would then drop to just say 5%, and then 10%, but then over time it increases as it gets closer to the actual purchase time. And then position based, where you go, well, obviously the first thing that initiated their decision making process, the consumer decision making process, and the last one completed it. So obviously the first thing that they did and the last thing that they did were the most important, which is not technically accurate. And then data driven, which is the coolest, which is where you want to kind of get to, where you go, remember our sales funnel? I don't want to go back to all those slides, but if you go, we had this many people, just say we had 100 people coming in that were interested in our product, right? And then the next stage, we lost 20% of our customers. And then, so then you can use your sales funnel then as an indication of attribution. So if you've got a lot of people dropping off at one particular point, that means that that point in your sales process is having the least impact on making the final sale, because that's where most people are dropping off. That makes sense, right? All right, now conclusion for this week's. This week had the following intended learning outcomes. Select the best KPIs for a website of any variety, and hopefully you know what KPIs are, and for the website that you're analysing for your business, you'd have a good idea what those KPIs are. Identify the most needed improvements for an e-commerce based website and analyse the conversion funnel. Remember we looked at that. And then describe the strengths and weaknesses of the various attribution models. We looked at those and the difficulty in actually doing that well. All right, that's it for this week. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Let me finish this.